Good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're watching this. Happy Friday. So today you will need paper and a pencil. I want to hear that you're doing your work on your own, or when you give me an answer, I definitely want to see that you're doing it on your own. So let's get started. We're going to multiply multi-digit numbers, the same thing we started this week after we were done with your tests. Your test generally went really well. Now we're going to focus on these whole numbers. Let's do a brain warm up first. In the number 12,567,908, what place value is the digit 5 in? And what does that 5 really represent or mean? Think about your place value chart as you go. Here's a copy of your place value chart. This is, of course, we've been going way past the thousands, that number we just did. We've been working a lot with decimals lately. We're going to take a break from decimals. We are going to focus on these whole numbers right here. What are whole numbers? Is there anything before the decimal? All right, so our goals today are to fluently, or do it well, multiply multi-digit whole numbers, and then we're going to multiply multi-digit whole numbers to solve word problems. And just a hint, our word problem coming up is going to include multiplication and subtraction. So keep that in your head as we keep going. All right, so if we're going to do 237 times 15, we need to think about a few things first. We need to set it up correctly, which includes starting all of our numbers all the way to the right. And in this case, our place values should pretty much match. So we're really doing two separate problems here. We're doing 237 times 10 and 237 times 5. So because we're multiplying by a two-digit number, we are going to get two answers before we get our final product. What are those two answers called? Partial products. Yeah, we're going to have our partial products because we're really doing two multiplication problems in one. All right, so 237 times 15. Remember, we're going to have our two partial products. All right, so we're going to start by multiplying everything by this 5. So you're going to multiply 5 times 7, 5 times 3, and 5 times 2. All right, go ahead and find your first partial product. All right, when you got your first partial product, you multiplied everything out by 5. And so 5 times 7 we know is 35. What number are we going to carry over? We're going to put our 5 here. We're going to carry over our 3. Okay. Now we have 5 times 3 is 15 plus the 3 more we already have, which is 18. And we're going to carry over our 1. 5 times 2 is 10. And we're going to add our 1 to that as well. So our first partial product is 1,185. If you didn't get that answer, stop and think about where you made your mistake. Okay, now we are going to move on to looking for our second partial product before we finish solving. Now, you have to do something so extremely important that we cannot forget. What do we need to do before we start multiplying by this 1 here? Because it's not really a 1. What are we doing? We are dropping down that 0. Now we can go ahead and solve after we cross off those numbers we already used, because we don't want to get them confused if we have to carry anything else over. 1 times 7, 1 times 3, and 1 times 2. All right. I hope you got that as your partial product. If you didn't, stop and think about where you might have made a mistake. Go ahead and add those partial products together to find our final product. And our final product is 3,555. I really hope you got the same answer. If you didn't, stop and think where your mistake might have been. Look back at your work. Look at my work right here. You can always pause the video. All right, so we have this word problem. All right, Josh's toy store sells toy cars. In each case, there are 125 cars, and Josh has 12 cases in the store. How many cars does Josh have in the store? If he sells one case, how many cars will he have? All right, so there's two question marks. So here, we're really answering two questions. And with a word problem, we've got to remember that we need to answer with words in the end because it asked us in words. Okay, our first read is always the gist. Go ahead and pick a good gist from my options. All right, yeah, a good gist would be Josh's toy store sells cars. All right, now reading it again. Josh's toy store sells toy cars. In each case, there are 125 cars, and Josh has 12 cases in the store. How many cars does Josh have in the store? If he sells one case, how many will he have? All right. Pick the option that lists the best answer possible for read number 2, the part where we have numbers and units. Yeah, hopefully you said 125 cars, 12 cases, 1 case sold. We had a label. Very nice. All right. Now, this is the part where we move on to solving. Well, reading it again, Josh's toy store sells toy cars. In each case, there are 125 cars, and Josh has 12 cases in the store. How many cars does Josh have in the store? If he sells one case, how many will he have? Like I said earlier in the video, we're going to use two operations. So in this question I'm about to ask you, there's going to be 4 operations. You need to pick which 2 are the ones we're going to use to solve this problem today. Yes, we are going to use multiplication, and then we're going to use subtraction. We have to figure out how many cars Josh has total so we can figure out how many he then has left. Okay. 125 times 12. Go ahead and solve that. And pick your answer in the multiple choice. Make sure you solve it on your own on paper. So if Josh has 125 cars and in each case, and he has 12 cases in the store, let's take a look at 125 times 12. All right, the space is going to be a little tight for me. 2 times 5 is 10, carry over the 1. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1, 5. 2 times 1 is 2, drop down that 0, and then we will carry on to 1 times 5, 1 times 2, and 1 times 1. So we have 250 times 1,000, 250. Right. 0, 10, carry over, 5, 1. All right. So Josh in total has 1,500 cars. Now, if he sells one case of cars, we're wondering how many he has left. Like I said earlier, we're going to subtract. So at this point, we need to do 1,500 or 1,500 minus 125 to figure out how many cars Josh has left after he sells a case. Go ahead and solve that. Pick the best answer. And of course, we always have to conclude with a sentence when we are solving a word problem. So, in my opinion, I think a great sentence for us would be, I'll just type it in here because I can't type when I'm using Screencastify. Okay, so a great sentence to conclude with would say, Josh has 1,500 cars in his store. If he sells one case, he will have 1,375 cars left. Notice that because we answered 2 questions, I have 2 sentences. Alrighty, I hope that made sense as we are moving along. So how is that problem different than any problem we've ever had before? I hope that you're thinking about that. I think I've already kind of told you, and we're going to move into some of this stuff next week and the following weeks. Mission accomplished. Have a great weekend.